Julie Andrews, famous for Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music, has died. Recently, she's written children's books. Everyone felt Julie Andrews was too Hollywood, understood it was wrong to hate anyone. Behind that flawless smile and sparkling voice was a resentment that remained alive. She hid it, but her tension with one industry woman was unmistakable. Ignore. Which woman dared to offend Julie? Stay to find out. Julie Andrews' turmoil in childhood. Everyone recognized Julie Andrews as graceful, perfectly poised woman. She had a lovely voice and an unmistakable sweetness. Many years before becoming Hollywood's dear, Julie's story began without fairy tales or crimson carpets. It began in wartime England, where love was difficult, tempers ran hot, and music was her escape and her salvation. Julie Elizabeth Wells was born October 1, 1935, in Thames, Surrey, Walton. Mother Barbara Ward Wells was energetic and dreamt big. Her father, Edward Charles Ted Wells, taught metal and woodworking. The twist: it wasn't Julie's birth. Of that marriage. Years later, her mother quietly admitted that Julie was conceived during an affair. Family pal. Julie discovered the secret at 15, a fact she hid for decades until her 2008 autobiography, World War II, broke the Wells family. Her parents remarried after divorcing. Barbara found new husband, performer Ted Andrews, while Julie's father married a war widow. Chaos of the Blitz sent families scattered across England, and Julie moved from home to home. Her father helped evacuate children while her mother entertained troops with her new husband. Julie previously lived with her father in Surrey, but he sent her home with her mother and stepfather in 1940. He believed they could improve her artistic knowledge. That choice changed her life, not altogether for the better initially. She nicknamed her stepfather Uncle Ted. That gave safety and distance. However, her mother encouraged her to name him Pop. Her real dad should simply be Dad, she said. She loathed the change, and eventually, reasons became painfully evident. She later described the family as poor and living in a ghetto. District of London. Her stepfather was abusive and drank heavily. Sometimes intoxicated, he tried to sneak into her room. Julie, scared and careful as a child, locked her door. One of her initial self-defense methods. Ted Andrews wasn't alone. Point 1. Fighting demons. Barbara, her mother, was alcoholic. Julie loved Mom, but she later revealed that her mother's drinking prevented her from having children. Absolutely trust her. Despite the chaos, music continued. As Barbara and Ted's theater careers began, they migrated to nicer neighborhoods to improve. First Beckenham, then Hersham, where they finally had some fun. Stability. They settled into the small, old Mews house. Family history. A maid, Julie's grandmother, worked there. Ted Andrews could be imperfect, but he sensed something special in his stepdaughter. He organized singing lessons for her. From Cone Ripman School to Trang Park School, Julie began her official training in the performing arts. Then came the lady who would shape her future than anyone else. The concert soprano Madame Lillian Stiles Allen became her voice coach and third mother. Madame Stiles Allen knew hearing Julie sing was rare. She said her students' range, tone, and control were nothing. Not surprising. A voice that floated notes, not merely pounded them. Julie subsequently joked that her 4-octave range was so piercing that dogs came from leagues away. Even she was unequaled in discipline despite downplaying her talent. Stiles Allen challenged her to Mozart and Rossini, taught her the method that would define her career. By the time Julie arrived, in her teens, she performed with confidence most adults couldn't match. But her trip began earlier and humbler, becoming huge. At the time, Julie Andrews became famous as Mary Poppins, the perfect woman who could charm birds out of the sky. Her popularity was a lifetime coming. Few knew that the singer was she. In her childhood, a spoonful of sugar struggled on wartime stages, discovering early that applause might fill more than theaters. It might heal wounded emotions and replenish empty stomachs. Stardom didn't start with fancy additions or Hollywood contacts for Julie. It started with beer crates and homemade mics. She started around 1945, around age 10. Featuring her mother and stepfather. Her little audiences seemed like Broadway. One afternoon, she was urged to nap so she could sing that night. Moment, little as it was the start of more. After then, she performed duets with her mother and stepfather, learning rhythm and poise. Later, she joked about those terrible early performances. Sounds but spectators adored her boldness and drive. After World War II, she visited the UK, performing for troops. Petula Clark recalled them sleeping in luggage racks on trains, performing for troops. Although other kids were cowering in bomb shelters, Julie was learning to command astage. Not a glamorous start, but it built her grit and showmanship. She changed when her stepfather introduced her to London's top venue manager Val Parnell. He saw something in the girl with lovely voice. She started her solo career at the London Hippodrome at 12. The notoriously difficult aria Jesuit Titania from Minion was performed. She nailed adult soprano's avoidance. Overnight, she moved from novelty act Toto rising star. Julie was a cheeky starlight roof character at the Hippodromeum for a year. Girl pleading for balloon animals from Wally Bogue. She sang, and the crowd went wild. Later, she remembered the audience's craziness. The kind of moment that defines a performer forever. Age 13, she became youngest solo performer to appear at Royal Variety before King George V, VI, and Queen Elizabeth. Think about it. Youngster, standing under palladium lights, voice filling Regal Hall. After that night, everyone recognized Julie Andrews. That was genuine. Her rise continued in radio, pantomime, and early TV. BBC appearances. In Aladdin, Humpty Dumpty, and Cinderella perfecting her art. Julie didn't seek fame then. She was pursuing mastery. While other youths were choosing a career in the early 1950s, Julie was already one. Professional West End performer. Her voice was used in the Italian animated film The Singing Princess was her debut movie. Change arrived in 1954. Everything. The Boyfriend was her Broadway debut before her 19th birthday. The actress recommends Hattie Jacques played the part and crossed the Atlantic. Nervous but determined. Her father urged her to take the risk and succeeded. The show was a hit, and critics called her its best. The audience dropped to appreciate her charm and easy voice. She wasn't required to be sweet, just who she was. Her next big opportunity struck soon. She auditioned for Lerner and Lowe's new show after her boyfriend ended. Musical, My Fair Lady. 3 readings got her the lead role of tough flower girl Eliza Doolittle. Became Lady Grace. Julie immediately related to Eliza's tale. Makeover, calling her a fully understandable character. During rehearsals, Moss Hart spent 48 hours instructing her individually, breaking down every feeling to become Eliza inside and out. Later, Julie called it the best acting that she ever learned. It was a hit when My Fair Lady premiered in 1956, as she was adored by critics and audiences. Julie Andrews became Broadway royalty overnight. Her success captivated Richard Rodgers, who created Cinderella for her. Over 100 people watched the 1957 live broadcast. Million viewers, unprecedented at the time. Overnight, she became America's new love. Hollywood couldn't look away. Between 1956 and she gained prominence on The Ed Sullivan Show and Gary Moore Show in the early 1960s. In 1960, she joined Richard Burton and Robert Gowl as Queen Gwen in Camelot. The manufacturing was difficult, yet Julie's voice and elegance carried it. The film adaptation of My Fair Lady was expected to succeed, to elevate her role. But studio chief Jack Warner believed Eliza wasn't movie star material and chose instead Audrey Hepburn. Devastating. Julie designed that character from scratch, and now it was taken right before she entered Hollywood. Fate had other ideas. Walt Disney saw her in Camelot and thought she was perfect for his magical nanny flick. Julie declined his Mary Poppins offer since she was pregnant. Disney's answer was straightforward. We await you. And he did. Julie flew to LA to film after giving birth. She meticulously and wittily created Mary Poppins. The outcome was magical. The film Julie Andrews became a Hollywood icon overnight and Disney's biggest hit. She won both Academy Award and Golden Globe for Best Actress. In her Golden Globe address, praising Mr. Jack Warner, who made it all possible, with an elegant punch. Poetic justice served with a smile. Music followed. Julie initially found it saccharine, but when filming began in Austria's Highlands, she fell in love. She played Maria with love and sincerity. Unforgettable. The picture was the year's highest grossing and cemented her status in Hollywood. She wasn't a one-note star in subsequent years. From dramas to TV specials, she reinvented herself. Grace, restraint, and subdued defiance characterized her work. She didn't seek fame. Anymore. A legacy was being made. Julie Andrews went beyond fame. that made her timeless. It's not her story of overnight fame, but strength, talent, and passion. From post-war British beer crates to the grand she sang non-stop in Hollywood. The world listened endlessly. Julie's greatest loves Andrews' life. For over 60 years, Julie Andrews has been Hollywood's grace. That heavenly voice, her impeccable composure and timeless charm made her everyone's favorite governess and wonderful nanny. But while her profession was legendary, her love life was quieter and more subdued, intimate, deeply human. A woman who loved madly, lost profoundly, and never gave up existed underneath that immaculate veneer that stopped believing in love, no matter how hard. Andrews, 90, has loved two men. Really loved them. First, Tony Walton, a talented set and costume designer who brought Broadway and Hollywood's biggest titles to life that brings productions alive. Then came director Blake Edwards, her perfect fit, love that lasted almost 40 years until his death. Tony Julie met Walton as a teenager. It was 1948 that the girl was 11. Luton George Hotel Christmas pantomime Humpty Dumpty. Walton, 12, was immediately taken by her while watching from the audience. He called after the show and said simple transaction into years-long pen-buddy friendship. When they reunited, that naive friendship had grown stronger as grown-ups. Over dinner, they enjoyed a peaceful moment that changed everything one night at the Walton family home. According to Andrews, they smiled and looked at each other in her memoir home without extravagant gestures or grand remarks. Whispered, they should marry. On May 10, 1959, they did. Young, talented, and hopelessly in love. Walton was a rising theatrical designer, designing while pursuing her own success. Andrews worked on Pippin and Guys and Dolls. When Mary Poppins arrived, Julie and Tony were imaginative. As the magical nanny, his outfits brought Cherry Tree Lane to life. Their romance produced a daughter, Emma Walton Hamilton, born November 27, 1962 to Andrew. Loved parenthood, but celebrity, a hectic schedule, and family life were tougher than ever to balance. Expected. She told Vanity Fair of marriage's ups and downs. It's some marvel, yet it's perhaps my hardest labor. Pressures rose slowly. Between film shoots, theater deadlines, and long separations, fissures appeared. Andrews called it Ash struggled between her love for her spouse and her child, everyone to be happy. But fame and family pulled her in separate paths. By 1968, the marriage had ended. Andrews told Stephen Colbert that she and her gorgeous first husband had divorced. Her heart was tired and her thoughts overloaded. The worst of it was, you feel like a failure because it's unexpected heading into marriage. Andrews and Walton never let heartbreak turn sour. They remained pals, true pals who lasted after the divorce papers were signed. Walton died in 2022. Andrews called him her best and oldest friend. Her voice was deep. Love, calling him an artistic giant, and that he had opened her eyes to the world. That they always respected each other. However, fate was already scripting her story before that chapter ended. Next one. At the time she met Walton in 1959, Andrews had briefly met Blake Edwards, the bright, elegant director behind Breakfast at Tiffany's and Pink Panther. Later, she said 2 ships passed at night. Years later, as if the cosmos gave them a second opportunity, and their paths crossed outside their therapist's office. Andrews remembered driving one way and Edwards the other. He rolled down his window, grinned, and asked, "Are you going where I just came from?" This was silly. Butin 1969. Edwards directed her and her beloved Lily, bringing them closer. It seemed dumb not to admit we were in love, Edwards told People afterward. Both had difficult timing. Edwards and his wife were still married, striving to overcome their past losses. Andrews said she was utterly surprised. They had seen each other briefly. Over a year. But she knew he was different. He had the most charisma. She recalled. I don't think I'll ever find anybody quite like him. 3 years later, they married, and Blake had 2 stepchildren, Jeffrey and Jennifer. Then Julie Ann Blake adopted 2 Vietnamese kids, Amy and Joanna. Their family grew fast, wonderfully, and a little chaos and fun filled their life with Edwards. They shared time between Malibu and Gestad. Highs and lows of love, art, and film business chaos. They survived because Andrews told them to take it day by day. Their love wasn't simply theoretical. Edwards praised her talent, calling her the beautiful English broad with exceptional soprano and promiscuous language during his honorary Oscar address in 2004. Andrews always praised his talent, the director, saying she couldn't emphasize enough how talented he was, not just because she was married to him. Edwards died of pneumonia in 2010, and Andrews was with him. Blake's birth shattered the mold, making it one of her hardest losses. Pondered. Two hadn't met anyone with his wit and elegance, which I counted on. Grief persists years after catches her off guard. She said some days are perfect. It will abruptly sock you between your gut and thought. Oh, God, I wish he were here. But some way, I believe love is always present. Julie Andrews' biography like a timeless film with music, heartbreak, reinvention, and love. She taught generations to sing. But beneath every song was a heart that could hurt and mend. With Blake Edwards, she stated, "We were married 41 years, and it was a love story." Really was. Even after all the acclaim, awards, and memories in her storybook career, life would throw her another devastating curveball. That very thing that had taken her from war-torn England to the world's biggest stages. Her voice would turn against her. Julie Andrews' singing voice loss. If having heard Julie Andrews sing, you know it wasn't simply a voice. Something heavenly like sunlight and velvet folded into sound. From Mary Poppins to Musicto, her Victor Victoria stage successes. Her 4-octave range captivated. But what? The voice that made her famous would betray her, something few know. When it did, nearly broke her. The late 1990s saw performance fatigue. Her instrument. Julie had trouble hitting notes in Victor Victoria on Broadway. That once was easy. Doctors identified a benign tumor, possibly a cyst or polyp that recommended surgery. It was meant to be easy and fast. Her husband, the show's production crew, and Blake Edwards wanted her back on stage for the touring company. Doctor reassured her the operation was safe. Thus, in June 1997 at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, Julie Andrews, whose voice spanned generations, signed the paperwork and was operated on. But it damaged her voice instead of repairing it. She developed vocal cord scarring. Correctly. Her pristine bell-like sound vanished overnight. When she speaking publicly in 1999, she struck deep. Singing is treasured. My inability to sing is distressing. She sued the doctors for malpractice, the hospital, alleging she was never told of concerns. The dispute was settled the next year for rumored $30 million, but she's never acknowledged it. But honestly, compared to voice loss, what's money? Still, Julie wouldn't go silent. She collaborated with famous surgeon Steven Zeitels, underwent many treatments to remove scar tissue and restore her speech. Here covered her speech. However, his examination of her cords revealed that much of her vocal tissue was just gone. Her range has shrunk from 4 lovely octaves to hardly 1. Middle and upper registers, her voice's heart, were missing, although she could sing low notes. That realization may have ended her story. She turned it into a mission. Health research and was honorary chair of the Voice Foundation, the Health Institute. She wanted people to preserve what she lost. But secretly, she grieved. She sought counseling in Arizona to accept quiet. Her memoir, Home, describes singing's past feeling. That beautiful moment when the orchestra swells beneath you, the melody embraces you, and every note seems right, like it was written for you. She lost that. Her soul, not just a career. And Julie Andrews remade herself as usual. Without her singing voice, she'd find one more. She began writing heartfelt children's books with her daughter, Emma Walton Hamilton. Unique wonder and song. When she asked Emma what books her baby grandson would like, she discovered she created them because they didn't exist. With Emma and ex-husband Tony Walton drawing, the trio approximately 30 popular children's books. Another type of performance, on paper instead of stage, she occasionally let that voice through. The Princess Diaries 2 director Gary Marshall encouraged her to sing a sweet duet with Raven Simone. The first time anyone heard Julie sing in years. Gary stated even the hardest guys on set became teary when she did. Julie Andrews lost her signature sound, but she never lost her capacity to move people. And possibly that always had her true magic. That was her gift. Convert pain into art and disappointment into dignity. Julie was graceful, but Hollywood wasn't always kind. Before mastering quiet, she'd experienced Hollywood silence, not surgery. Julie Andrews genuinely hated her. Everyone felt Julie Andrews was too nice to hate anyone, but Hollywood whispers said otherwise. Different tale. A stubborn wound lay underneath that flawless posture and English charm. All of it began with a movie beauty whose grace matched hers note for note. Julie Andrews' tale. Audrey Hepburn represents silent hurt, stolen chances, and poetic justice, not outright rivalry. Hollywood wrote better than ever. Everyone was talking about My Fair Lady in the early 1960s. Julie Andrews played Eliza Doolittle on Broadway, transforming her from a Cockney flower girl become an elegant Londoner 8 times a week. Her voice, comedy, and timing were flawless. Naturally, when My Fair Lady was announced as a film, everyone assumed Andrews would automatically play the role that made her famous. But Hollywood had different ideas. At 30, Julie was a Broadway personality. That for Warner Brothers CEO Jack Warner, differentiation was key. He reportedly asked Andrews she didn't want a screen test, since he had witnessed her perform it night after night. She reportedly said, "You've seen me do the part, and you know I can do a good job." Admirable could have cost her everything. Warner publicly stated that he would only contemplating cinema stars for the role. At breakfast, Audrey Hepburn was already popular. Tiffany's and Sabrina appeared. Audrey had elegance, fame, and that fragile beauty camera lenses adored. Warner offered her a huge $1 million for the part. Astounding some at the time. He claimed Audrey's name was easily recognizable and that in his opinion business was about ticket sales. Broadway aficionados considered it theft. Julie earned Eliza. Audrey inherited her. Audrey even felt uncomfortable with the casting. She acknowledged viewers' displeasure after seeing Julie on stage in interviews. Because she thought Andrews owned the part, she didn't want to play it, but she recognized that if they declined, another actor would be offered the role. She accepted hesitantly to honor the job rather than steal it. The horrible twist followed. Audrey dedicated 12-hour days to the production. Master tunes. Backstage, director George Cukor and composer Andre before the musical numbers. Previn decided her voice wasn't strong enough. Marn was brought in softly. Nixon dubs Audrey's vocals, like he did for Natalie Wood in West Side Story. Audrey didn't know she was devastated when she learned. She worried that the world would remember her as the lady who taking Julie's role and not singing. Previn later recalled how much the discovery hurt. She never complains publicly, but cries secretly. Criticism from the press made things harder. Displacing Andrews. When the film came out, it hurt more. Though behind the scenes, My Fair Lady soared. It earned $72 million. 12 Oscar nominations. Audrey's victory was humiliating. She wasn't nominated for Best Actress. Therefore, karma or fate intervened. Julie, across town. Andrews nailed her film debut in Mary Poppins. Her performance was bright and attractive. Unbelievably graceful. At the Oscar nominations, Mary Poppins was everywhere and Julie was there. Its center. The actress who was told she wasn't movie star material became one of Hollywood's brightest. Fresh faces. Next was Oscar night. Audrey, lovely as ever, watched. Best Actress was Julie Andrews. The crowd roared. Andrews, resplendent in her gown, accepted the golden statue that symbolizes everything she lost and won again. Before the presentation, Julie gently informed reporters Audrey deserved a nomination. Nevertheless, that post photo of Audrey smiling politely beside Julie holding her Oscar told 1,000 stories. To the world, it was a nice peer exchange. But Hollywood insiders saw poetic justice. In camera. It was rumored that Julie's triumph was a consolation prize for being rejected in My Fair Lady. But that theory was rejected by Andrews. She preferred to believe she won for good reasons. Still, she had ached to be ignored. Years later, she confessed to secretly wanting to be requested to play Eliza in the film. She called it a dream, not ambition that would have utterly thrilled her. That dream was passed on to Audrey, who was graceful. Hepburn left a mark. Time softened the edges, as usual. When the 1965 Academy Awards saw the two women meet, unsaid went between them. Suddenly, stress was gone. Julie talked about Audrey in an interview years later. He said, "Julie, you should have done it, but I didn't have the guts to turn it down." Sentence ended years of hearsay. Afterward, they became buddies. Julie always recalled warmly Audrey. Even her husband, director Blake, loved her. She added, Edwards also loved Hepburn. She added half-jokingly, but with wistfulness, that if she hadn't, Audrey may have entered his life. Did Julie Andrews loathe Audrey Hepburn? Maybe not tabloid style, like imagining. However, her ideal role eluded her, and the world witnessed another lady live it. It must have hurt her forever. Even Hollywood's sweetest icon, not all stories are about rivalry. They concern what Grace suffers heartbreak in public. How do you feel about Audrey Hepburn's feud and Julie Andrews? Leave your comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video.